Today's episode is a little different. What you're about to hear is a live Q&A session from my identity workshop. This particular edition was conducted for the Pianist Academy, led by award-winning pianist Charles, who was also a guest on this podcast earlier last year. The session was long and we went deep. So, before we begin, I want to offer a small invitation. Don't consume this passively. Let yourself drop into it. Give it time. There are threads in here that unfold slowly. Although this workshop was delivered to musicians, pianists, both part-time and professional, the questions that surfaced are really not about music alone. They're about identity, authorship, about the assumptions we carry regarding who we are allowed or not allowed to be. At the core of this workshop is a simple question. What if we began to look at our lives as a work of art? What shifts when we think more like creators and less like replaceable parts inside an industrial system that measures worth by output? The Identity Workshop has become something of a milestone in my curatory work. It's where art and everyday life meet. And while it emerged from my experience in the creative industries, it's vocation agnostic by design. The principles apply whether you're a pianist, a founder, a parent, a freelancer, or even navigating any life transition. Because identity shapes everything. The work is learning to see it clearly. A quick note on audio. This was recorded over Zoom. I've cleaned it up as much as possible, but it's not studio quality, so I'm asking for a little grace here. If you can instead focus on the substance of the conversation itself. The texture of that matters more than the polish of the audio quality in this instance. And finally, my thanks to Charles and his community for hosting this within the Pianist Academy. Their generosity, their kind words, their incredible feedback, and in creating a space where these kind of conversations can unfold. I'm really looking forward to more collaborations ahead. Take your time with this one. Hello fellow beings, welcome to Tapasya Loading, a safe space to attempt honest, raw and authentic conversation in homage to the ancient act of stoking a sacred fire.
Thank you so much. What a fascinating talk. That was unbelievably a great learning experience. And so thank you, that was so excellent. And I wish I could be there face to face with you because I could talk to you for hours about what you just said. But one thing that struck me in your comments is that you could give this same talk to doctors, to lawyers, to accountants, to teachers, any profession, and everything that you have said applies equally to everybody else on the journey or path that they've decided to take throughout their life. And even though you didn't draw that comparison, at the end of it, I'm saying, yeah, I was a lawyer in my former life, but I could put you at a law conference and everybody would have been fascinated by your remarks and how applicable it was to their profession. So thank you for that. And I had a totally unrelated other question, which is, do you think AI is a threat or is going to be a threat to the path that musicians are going to have to follow in the future and the path that music is going down now?
Well, thank you, Louise, to start off with very, very kind words. That means the world to me, and I'm not just saying that. Fun fact, I was talking to Charles about this earlier on. I have what I call a vocation agnostic version of this workshop as well. My heart's calling at this point is to reach out to more people, regardless of what they've dedicated their life to, including doctors and lawyers. So it helps me a lot to know that you might feel that way. Thank you. AI is a biggie, huh? I would... I remember in the beginning, people would say AI is a game changer. And my first question to my students was, if you think AI is a game changer, my invite to you is to ask, one, what do you want changed in the first place? And what game do you think you're playing? So I'll start with that.
And secondly, I think AI is here to stay. I think most of us are still too preoccupied to just come to terms with the inherent fact that AI is here to stay. And is this a curse or a blessing? In my limited qualified experience of this, I think with all phenomena this powerful, it all depends on who is using it and how. It could be equal parts curse and blessing at this point. For people like me and Charles, who've actually been dabbling with AI by default in the music production studio, I think 20 years back when drum machines came out or humanizing plugins came out where you could make a drum machine sound like human, even that sounded wrong. It felt karmically wrong, like this shouldn't be happening. It stayed. It didn't disrupt the way most people thought it would. But at this point, it's gotten really extreme. You can really write out a few sentences and have a song on your hands in a few minutes. So that is a little disconcerting. My general takeaway on this is I think it's time we went back to the roots of what music and the arts really were. It was a healing art, really. The music industry has only been around for a couple of centuries. It's a spoiled little child in comparison to the history of music. So I think that's what we need to take a closer look at. Intentionality. Does that help your question?
Oh, it just leads to another 20 questions. I'm thinking about YouTube. You go on YouTube and there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people trying to sell themselves as having the magic elixir for this course or that course, and they can teach you how to play the piano in 30 days. I haven't taken that course yet, but I may need it. But even, like it's almost like people have taken technology and their ability to promote themselves on these platforms, and they're using AI to generate their courses, and like it just seems like you're almost overwhelmed with the industry, whether it's man-made or assisted through computers and AI. I'm going to call it the unsuspecting public who just wants to learn how to play the piano or learn how to play an instrument or learn how to do something. So is it taking away from the development of the arts and your artistic side? Or is it now opening the doors to thousands more people being able to take music lessons that couldn't afford a personal teacher or couldn't afford to take lessons in some other ways? I mean, where are we going with this? It just seems like there's just an explosion everywhere. And I don't know if it hurts learning to be artistic or learning how to develop your skills, or whether it's helpful. I mean, where do you sit on this?
Thank you for asking that. I sit on this with the lens that it's a wake-up call to the fact that there's no way we're going to be getting away with laziness anymore. So the levels of discernment we're going to have to start working on to come to conclusions with regards to who I want to connect with, who I want to engage with, what quality of material I want to be a participant of is going to be a decision we're going to have to be extraordinarily conscious and aware of. We can't allow our environment to make these decisions for us anymore, which is what we've been doing for a lot of the time. Since pretty much the start of the Industrial Revolution, we basically let a lot of society make decisions on what we consume without us even realizing it. There's an entire industry with basis its income on this, how to sell, which is not inherently a bad thing, but the consumer has to become an active participant in this and less of a passive one. So in a way, one could almost reframe it as a very unorthodox brand of equality being established. So now you will probably have a lot more to choose from, but you're going to have to put in a lot more work into making those choices, because there's going to be an explosion of content out there that is, you said almost overwhelming, excuse me. I'd omit the word almost. It's already more than overwhelming, to a point where we're being bombarded with quantities of information the human brain simply wasn't equipped to handle. So we're going to have to go back inside, check in with ourselves as non-negotiable if we want to harbor any hopes of retaining our agency on the choices we make, art or otherwise.
Guess the real question is, does the consumer have the skill sets to determine what's worthwhile and what's not?
That is a great question. Well, they'll definitely need to work on those if they don't. Because the alternative is the kind of chaos nobody needs.
Mm.
Does that help?
You know what? What you've said is so fascinating. I really appreciate, the CPU today. So thank you so much.
I see a question from Joey and from June. Joey, can we do yours first, and then we'll move to June?
Okay, I'm going to go in a little bit different direction here. I spent my life working in music as a teacher and as an actual performer, singing wise. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there so you understand where I'm coming from. I'm 70 years old and I'm retired and I'm playing for myself, which I've never had the opportunity to do.
Beautiful.
So I almost use it as meditation when I'm sitting at the piano playing.
Beautiful.
An issue that I have, please forgive me, Charles, I know you're going to hate this, but an issue that I've had with multiple teachers through the years is this butting up against playing a piece correctly and playing it the way I want to play it and feel it artistically. And I've always fought with every teacher I've ever had about that issue. And where, especially now, this time in my life, Charles has been fantastic about this issue because I'm sure I'm driving him crazy, and I've driven every teacher I've ever had crazy. And I had this gentleman who was kind of whifty. He was a great pianist, and I just went to his house because he had a concert Busendorfer to play. And when he listened to me, and I was only like in my early 20s, he said, just out of the blue, and I was a young person and didn't realize all of this stuff, you have a hard time with your teachers holding you back, don't you? And I thought, wow, he really just connected with me just now. And I don't even know this person, because I have always felt in my life that I'm struggling between playing it absolutely precisely. I'm going through it right now with Charles. We're doing it right now. I'm learning a Beethoven sonata, and I'm getting so deep into it, I'm a little bit starting to lose the feeling, and he's got to actually rein me in to start making this sound, the feeling of it, not so much just playing the notes exactly the way they are. And so I do fight that. And it's like, what can I do to stop fighting that, short of just forgoing everybody and just playing it for myself the way I want? I'll use Claire de Lune as another. I know Claire de Lune really well. I'm struggling with trying to memorize it. I have a problem, big problem, with memorization. And I want to express it. And sometimes expressing it is different than what the composer, Debussy, didn't intend. When do I stop? Where do I guess I'm trying to ask you, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but where do I stop creating my sense of what this piece feels like to me and what is written on the page and how I'm supposed to play it? Does that sound crazy? I hope it does.
Not at all. No, that's a beautiful question. I love it. Well, to start off with, Joey, you're an inspiration. I love that you're doing what you're doing at the phase of your life you're doing it at. It's like, yeah, I want to be like you when I grow up as well. The first thing I want to say, just that you have that light in your eye. It just is such a testimony to why all of us should be playing music. So I'll open with that. I have two replies for you. One is in the form of a question, which is, why do you want to stop fighting? Fighting can be fun as long as we're fighting about beautiful things like how a piece of music ought to be played. And secondly, when do you stop? When do you know that you're ready to interpret the music on your own terms?
Mm-hmm.
When you won't be asking yourself that question anymore. It's a little like, when do you know when you're in love? You don't ask yourself.
Yeah.
You don't ask ourselves if we're in love. It's not a question people just even think about asking themselves when they're actually in love. Music is a very similar energetic space. If you're still asking that question, chances are Charles is doing exactly what that needs to be done and push me to there.
We've talked about that. He probably knew, Joey's going to ask the question. I just know he's going to ask that question.
We tend to
talked about it in depth.
We tend to think of conflict as something negative inherently, unfortunately. And tributary as the kind of stress levels we deal with in our everyday lives, I can imagine why this would be our knee-jerk response to conflict. But conflict is also, just friction, and life without friction is a life without contrast and is basically monotone, like literally. The reason you're playing music is because chances are part of you signed up for exactly that. You want to be challenged, so enjoy the ride, man.
Okay, thank you.
I'm clear.
We've taken whole lessons of talking, and I've apologized to Charles, and he's like, I absolutely love this. He loved talking with me, and we wind up spending a lesson just talking about performing and where we want to take a piece or work on, which I love doing too.
What a beautiful space. What a beautiful way to spend our time, to really, how the music is love. I know that sounds like hopelessly romantic, but what better way to spend our time than to really get into deep discussions involving friction, even when needed, on how love works. Now, love hurts a little, so
and we
enjoy it.
Yeah, I have to say, he's my first teacher that I've been able to do that with. Most of my teachers are no, let's get to the piece. I'm like, why? Let's talk about the piece. I want to understand, I want to understand, why am I playing this way? Why do I feel this? I do feel this. Do you feel the same thing? A million questions come up and they never want to talk about it. He's the first one. Like I said, I could spend an entire lesson just talking about music and what we're doing. And it's
that doesn't surprise me.
Still worth you're right. It's still worth the lesson time.
Oh, 100%. I can confirm that.
You made me really nervous when you asked your initial question.
I know you.
But okay, sounds good. June, let's move over. You had a question you were wanting to bring up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, June.
Hi. Excellent presentation. It's very appropriate for what I'm going through right now. And I wanted you've already made a couple statements that have answered a little bit of what I'm going to ask, but I wanted you to address more the passion and the pressure, particularly for an amateur type person. I'm categorizing myself, but so my background is I was a scientist my entire life, and I had pressure, I had deadlines, I had a lot of, and I loved what I did. And then I retired, and I was like, well, now I don't have any pressure. My life is just going to sail. I'm not going to set goals. I'm not going to do I'm not going to do any of this performance management I used to have to do when I worked. And I've always loved music, and I grew up knowing music, but I really took it passionately, and my life took a completely different turn than I had planned on when I retired. And I took up the music and took up more piano and started taking lessons, and ukuleles behind me, and other things like that. And so the question I have is about, now I'm starting to feel pressure. I'm setting goals. And some of the pressure is getting to be a little on the extreme side. And, I was the type of person I was playing, pretty much just for myself. But now it's gotten a little bit bigger. I joined an ensemble. I play the harp as well. I joined a small ensemble. And so I played the harp for them. And I'm feeling a lot more pressure. And it's all self-induced. I don't have to have these pressures. But I was wondering if you could address how to handle it. And like you said, conflict is good. And I'm starting to see you need the conflict because you, like you said, you want to be challenged, you want to learn, you want to grow. And so I'm doing that now in music, but I didn't expect it to be pressure like when I was working type pressure. And so I want to know how to deal with it and how to get a little more happiness back into it and stop feeling the type of pressure that I'm starting to feel.
Lots to unpack there. I also want to make sure I don't ram in with generic responses without being a little more familiar with the specific nuances of the situations that push you to feeling the way you do. But generally speaking, in my experience, the only person who can actually put pressure on us one way or the other, and this might sound a little harsh, is ourselves. Yeah. But that's so much more complex than we realize because our brains are wired to find circumstances to confirm the reasons we are feeling pressure. Especially with someone like you, you're clearly an incredibly smart woman. So that comes with the fallback is your brain is also smart enough to find very legitimate reasons to justify the pressure you're feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
It's the curse of intelligence, for lack of a better term, as offhand as it may sound. And some of my more quote-unquote gifted students go through this as well, because depending on how our earlier experiences with music, our earlier associations with music are, our brain will have gone through something broadly referred to as trauma. That word's overused, about underqualified often, so I want to be careful using it. But our path, I've shared a lot about my personal life, so you probably know that I haven't had the easiest life per se. But I'll say this, it took years of conscious reprogramming to realize that so much of the emotions I was feeling, were self-induced. Again, very harsh. So the real journey there is to look somewhere else and maybe ask ourselves, or ask yourself, in your case, I want to be more specific, why did you start playing music? And why do you think you feel the need to deliver whatever it is you think you're delivering, especially if this is something you're practicing primarily as a form of therapy? Music is medicine. Chances are there's, one of the teachers I work with is, and this might sound very tangential, but something that really helped me, and hopefully this will help you as well, is that when we come from a space of inadequacy, no matter what we do to stop feeling inadequate, it's never going to make us stop feeling inadequate. Pressure is the evil twin, or the more obvious twin, of feeling inadequate, and usually a mirror for why you don't think we're adequate enough the way we are. And hence, that blind spot just keeps on piling into more and more pressure we think we need to live up to and overcome in order to feel more adequate. Does that make sense? I know that's like a heavy download.
No. Yeah, it does make sense.
So if I were to, I don't do quick hacks, but if I were to give you one, my advice to you would be, June, you seem like an incredibly intelligent woman. Chill a little. You deserve it. You look like a kind of person who really deserves to chill a little and be a little more gentle with yourself.
In the beginning, it started out as I was just, and it was during COVID as well, and everybody was isolated. So it was, I'm playing for myself. Okay. And now that we are not in COVID anymore, people will encourage you to venture out, play more for others, do a little more of that, which is why I joined the ensemble, get some practice outside of my home environment. And, but I think you're right. I mean, I've been trying to tell myself to take a step backwards a little bit and try and remember why I started doing this and, where can I get the enjoyment out of it? And it's not that I don't still enjoy it. I still love everything I do. It's just, maybe part of it is the pressure to want to be perfect. You know, you want to play the best that you can play for others. And, you have to remember that you're not always going to play perfect.
Now, Charles is going to post this hopefully in your group. So consider going back to the slides. There's a part where I make an analogy of playing music being an act of intimacy with ourselves. So it has a lot to do with relating. And when we are connecting, we start off connecting. Romances or intimate relationships start off on the right note, and then at some point they start reflecting things that we feel inadequate about. And way out there, my apologies if that's too tangential, but in my experience, music is exactly the same. It really is a very, very intimate relationship, and it is so gonna hit us in the face with pointers to so many things that we probably have a lot of limited beliefs about, sense of inadequacies about. And my invitation to you is dive in, because music doesn't lie, art doesn't lie. Again, it's trying to make you the person you want to be. So even if it hurts a little, dive in. You won't regret it. And face those questions head on, because I can see you really want to.
Thank you. That was good advice. Thank you.
I'm really glad.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
This, by the way, for everybody, the same thing that is happening. I'm so glad that all of you that have asked questions are opening up. TL, every time you and I talk, I have this complete sense of comfort about expressing anything that I'm feeling. So thank you for providing that kind of environment for all of us.
It's an absolute honor and total pleasure, man. This is what I live for.
Absolutely. Great. Becky, I see you have a question?
It's kind of exactly off of what we just talked about, but you can see this room. I'm covered up in pianos, and everybody that walks here thinks, oh my God. And I never had bright lessons. I've just always played until I got lessons with Charles. And so I feel like even though I'm getting so much better, I don't believe it. And I'm hesitant to share it because I just don't have the training. Does that make sense? And can you expand on how you get over feeling that on yourself, that people walk in here and see this and they think things and I cannot live up to that? And so, how do you deal with all that?
There's a short answer and a long answer. The short one, which I would really request you to remember, is keep going. That's the shortest answer. And it kind of nails everything. The longer answer is really reverting back to the question of identity. Who is the Becky who feels that she's not delivering what she thinks she's capable of delivering, or quote unquote should be delivering? A sense of feeling of being should upon, like someone in that room of yours with these gorgeous pianos is constantly telling you ought to be doing something differently. I would consider turning around and confronting this person, asking why they think you ought to be doing something differently, why they think that whatever it is you're doing is not enough. Because I can assure you, you are not enough. Start there. As I mentioned in the workshop too, success, quote unquote, can be one of the most hollow experiences to have. At the peak of, at the most glorious moments of my career, quote unquote, this year I represented the UN at International Jazz Day. And believe it or not, my first thought while getting a standing ovation was, I think my career is over. That's what the human brain does. It was literally probably one of the top 5 most prestigious concerts of my life. And my first thought while taking a standing ovation is, your career is over. That's what the human brain's wired to do, And that same paradigm completely transposes itself in a room like yours as well. You might replace some of the words like career with something else, but, the whole human condition is all about constantly having quote-unquote demons challenges. But I have a saying that our demons are our angels in disguise, screaming to be seen.
If you're an independent artist feeling stuck, scattered, or just tired of figuring it all out alone, I've made something for you. It's called the Artist Mind Map 2.0, and yeah, it's been 5 years in the making. Built through real work with artists all around the world, from cities like Nashville, Tenerife, Mumbai, New York, Berlin, real-life people, musicians and artists. So not just theory, but lived stuff. And I've rebuilt this into a 6-day clarity sequence, a mini course. Each day gives you one simple prompt or tool, not fluff, just stuff that helps you finally move, focus, and remember who the heck you are. I'm building a community of holistic, happy creatives, musicians and artists who are building their careers on their own terms without selling out, without burning out. And contrary to what the industry says, this might actually be one of the best times in history to be an artist, but only if you know how to navigate what the real work is. So if this is something you're interested in, you can grab it free at holisticmusicianacademy.com. Just go to holisticmusicianacademy.com and click on free training.
I also live in a place where I know a lot of jazz musicians. And so that's the other heat, because they had been cutting their first CD at 9 years old. So I'm hesitant to play in front of those people, if that makes sense, because they're just...
That makes a lot of sense. Musicians can be so mean. It's which is why we really need more people like Charles doing what he does. Musicians can be some of the meanest people out there. It's because there's years of resentment being built up. We spent the best years of our life practicing in cellars while others are out partying. And then the payoff is huge. The payoff is that we have invested in something that, guides us and stays at our side for the rest of our lives. Every one of us knows that deep inside. That, it's so powerful and it's so fulfilling at the risk of sounding trite. But the path there is laden with so much resentment from so many factors in our environment that a lot of times it is very, very difficult to remember. It's like being married to the love of your life for all of your life and then, having others say there's something up with them. And I keep making these relationship analogies, but, it really is the love of our life. But that's something we need to learn to protect with time. That's another important part of sustaining, protecting our energy, protecting that relationship with what we have with music, and also integrating all aspects of our environment too, because we don't live in Disneyland. That's the good thing. But that's where the deeper practice starts. Like, can I radiate in my 100%? Can I be 100% Becky no matter where I am? That's the question I'd ask. And if yes, amazing. And if not, why? And start walking downward that road. Why do you think you can't be Becky around differing circumstances?
I am. I just defer to them to play it instead of me to play it. But I love their jazz music and I'm learning.
So did I misread your question or did I misinterpret?
You did a great job. I really appreciate it. I've loved listening to all this identity and all these things. It's been really interesting.
Thank you, but I still want to make sure I don't leave you hanging. I want to make sure that I answered your question in some helpful way. So what would you say is your biggest struggle with regards to what you were trying to get at?
I think they have asked me to go play at like a restaurant. And then when I get there, I have to follow the guy that is incredibly gifted and I'm just playing my speed. And it just feels, it's hard to follow that and feel good about it. Although I did fine, but still. So I guess it's just an internal battle that you have to fight.
Okay, so you follow this guy who is apparently more advanced than you are, and you did a good job. So I still don't see a problem. Tell me more about the problem.
Can I jump in and maybe reframe? I think I'm going to reframe the same question. And TL, I know you've experienced this. I for sure, anytime I play for a colleague, let's say, I feel there's the risk of incredible judgment from someone that we perceive as at least as good as we are, if not better. Mm-hmm. How do we find the courage to share what's ours in the face of the risk or the perceived risk, and how that causes that fight or flight to kick in. And the easiest thing is just to run away and say, I don't want to share what I've worked on. Do you have any?
Could you live with the version of the story where you didn't share what you have to share?
Well, I have in the past. When I was younger, I for sure. I mean, it wasn't great, but I think for everybody, it's easier to make that choice to not share. Especially if, so TL, you and I, probably Joey also, we have been in various situations where we have experienced the immense joy, post-sharing music and all of the greatness that comes after doing that. But even for those of us that have that, it can be really hard to remember how wonderful it is before we find the courage to go present something or go play something. And I think it might be even more difficult when you don't know what's the reward afterward. Does that make sense?
That makes 100% sense. Again, there's the short answer and the long answer. The short answer is, I'll stick to this, and in your case, it may not be as relevant because you're here, and that in itself is a statement. But for many others, myself included, between the guy who goes up on stage, scared crap, maybe even messes up, but took that shot, and the other guy who says, nah, I'm just gonna not do it. Which of these two people are we? Is the question I would invite people to ask. Because in my experience, and I'm pretty sure Joey will second it, or some others as well, it's so much tougher to be the second. Like the torture of being the second person who walks away from that opportunity of messing up, but also just doing what they know they really want to do. That's like an entirely different league of torture. So it's really a lot more simpler. It's about hurting a little lesser. Being the person who goes up and takes that shot is way less painful than the one who walks away. So the only quote-unquote tool I can offer is reminding ourselves that it might seem easier on the spot, but it's going to hurt so much worse if we walk away. Does that help?
It does. Yes, I need to get out there and do it again and get some of that positive feedback, and hearing that.
100%. Even if you get negative feedback, that doesn't change who you are. You're the person who took that shot, and that's what counts. What it really boils down to is, are you the person who goes and does it or who doesn't? The outcome and the feedback actually doesn't count. Because I'll tell you, once you do it often enough, the positive feedback just keeps getting, into a snowball to a point where that doesn't really do it for you. You don't really care at some point. And I've been in concerts where people would just say, that was amazing. That's the most amazing thing I've heard. It didn't matter because I didn't like what I did. Whole different kind of worms, by the way. But the point I'm trying to get at is the resonance you think is the validation and the reason behind you going up there and doing what you do is really not what it is. That's an imposter. You want to go up there and play because that's who you are. Yeah? Literally, you do you. I could have just led with that.
That's a great summary, though. Jane, I see you have a question, Jane. There we go.
I don't know if it's much of a question as it is kind of a comment about this. I know that Becky's talking about she goes into a restaurant and plays, which I go like, oh my gosh, I would never do that in 1,000 years. And how does she do that? And I think some of it is self-taught, a lot of self-talk, because I know even with a lesson, and I have a teacher who's very positive. He's extraordinarily positive, and he's helped me a lot. But there are some lessons, even though he's positive, at the end of the lesson, I say, that was horrible. That was awful what I did. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it really is, it's a lot of self-taught. And right now I have a flautist who's a very good friend, and she wants me to play some Bach. That's surprising to everybody here. Some Bach with her. And I'm like going, well, yeah, maybe we could start with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something, because I had never played with anybody before. And so it's very overwhelming and kind of
scary for me to even put myself out there, even in a small room with a piano and a flute going and playing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jane. I appreciate that. Permission to respond.
You may respond if you wish.
I'd love to. What do you think you're scared of?
Oh, that I don't know. I guess that
That's interesting, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's just like, twinkle, twinkle, little star. It would be good for me. Let's get it really simple. I mean, and I play really tough stuff, but I play some tough stuff. Don't you think, Charles?
Absolutely. Yes.
So, and my teacher's been great that way and has introduced me to things I would never have played in 1,000 bazillion years, ever. And so I feel really good. And I love to just sit at the piano and play. Just love it. I love it. I just love it. And I'm not afraid to do it. And sometimes, I don't feel that what I feel sometimes I don't actually comes out in the sound. So I'm working on that right now. But, yeah, I would really like to go over to my friend's house and play on her baby grand and have her do this flute thing. And it just scares me to death.
Sounds like a real invite to go do exactly that.
Yeah, I'm a psycho. I'm not much different than Joey. No, I'm not kidding.
We're all a little psycho, Jane. That doesn't make no brownie points for that.
That's a part of being a musician, I think.
I don't consider myself a musician. I don't. I honestly don't. I don't see myself as a musician or artist. In fact, it was funny as you were doing your whole talk, and I really enjoyed it. It was philosophical. I was a philosophy major for a while. So I really understood a lot. I mean, I really got it at a great depth, and I don't deal in that anymore. But
thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, it was very philosophical. It was great. In fact, I'm really curious to know what those 5 years were and why they're lost to you. I mean, that was really that was like, wait, what does that mean that they were lost to you? So I mean, but I don't want to get off on that. I'm just simply rambling right now. So that's it.
No, no rambling at all. That's actually a super interesting question. Someone's there. First of all, you don't think you're a musician, and yet you play piano. So that brings us back to the question we started with. How do we even define what a musician is? Especially in an age, you'd be surprised at that there are these mythological cliches about what musicians or what society think musicians actually do. If they're full time, but you might be surprised at how similar our lives can be to quote unquote normal jobs. Then there are aspects where they're devastatingly different as well. But I know you said you're just commenting and not questioning per se. I hear a bit of questioning there too, or I'll take the liberty of framing it as one. And it's Sam asked you earlier, what are you scared of? Sounds like one of the most wonderful things to do, to go spend time with your friend who's a flautist and make music together. And yet there is fear. Now I say that not from a space of judgment, but I see an opportunity there to find out so much more about what could be going on there. So I would sincerely invite you to consider going down that road and ask yourself, regardless of if you go and play with your friend or not, maybe dig a little deeper. What am I scared of? What do I think is going to happen?
Right.
What if I told you, okay, here's the scenario. You go to, okay, tell me, what do you think the worst thing, give me 2 more minutes. What do you think is the worst thing that could happen if you went and played with your friend?
I'm never invited to play again.
Okay, now imagine this scenario. You go to your friend, you nail it, you crush it, you play in ways you didn't even know you were capable of. And your friend's like, wow, I didn't know you could do this. First of all, I want to do this at least once a week. And maybe if you're game, we could go actually play a few concerts. How do you feel about that scenario?
I've never even engaged in that thinking.
Exactly. But how realistic does it feel to you?
I think that she, in the long run, would like me to play in this group. I would be the one, because I think they have a violin and they've got a piano and they have, I don't know, something else, maybe clarinet or something.
That's great, but how realistic does the scenario of you nailing it, crushing it, and then going on tour with your friends?
No, that's not realistic.
Okay, but here's the interesting part to it. None of these situations are realistic. They're both just us riffing on what might happen.
Right.
That might be something that might sound super banal, but fact of the matter is that disaster scenario and that killing it scenario, none of them exist.
Yes.
So that scenario where you're killing it at this point is as valid as the one you're making a total fool of yourself. That might be something to chew on.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Great.
You're most welcome.
Jane. Wonderful. Does anybody else want to chime in with anything? There's no pressure. I know there are a handful of you that haven't said anything, and you don't have to. It's totally fine if you don't have any questions or anything else. I just want to know that, Louise, you've got a follow-up. Okay.
Let's go, Louise.
All of your responses to these questions has been so fascinating. And I'm just wondering, and I'm looking at the age group that is here before you today, and we've all come from varied careers, and going to relate it to myself. I had a really successful career. I could get up and speak in front of hundreds of people. I did all kinds of litigation. And yet when it comes to my second career, which is playing golf and playing the piano, which are related to the comments that you made today in terms of dynamics and success and whatever, I am exactly where Jane is at. I'm saying, okay, I don't mind playing at home. I don't mind if my husband hears me. But the thought of going to a public space and sitting down at a piano terrifies me. And in my head, I'm saying, this doesn't make any sense. Because you're right. What's the worst that can happen? People are going to boo? Or probably don't react at all? Is that the worst dynamic? Well, what's so bad about that? Except the thought, when you come from something that's successful and now you're at the lowest rungs, when you haven't achieved any success and you don't really have a lot of confidence in what you can and can't do, that next step is really terrifying. And so how do you overcome that? And I know there's a gazillion courses on how to overcome performance anxiety. And maybe the goal is, do I really care if I ever perform? When in my mind, I'm saying only doing this for myself, for my own enjoyment. So you can see the pulls of two things here, wanting to do it, but not wanting to do it. So which is the right way to go? Or do I just, stay at one level and never advance to the other? Assuming that's even the advancement to be able to play before others. I don't know. So that's a jumble of ideas. I don't know if you can discern whether or not there's a question in there.
Absolutely. Would you be willing to try an exercise with me right now for a couple of minutes? Do we have time for that, Charles?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Louise, you're worried about quote-unquote performance anxiety. Can you describe that scenario where your performance anxiety manifests exactly your worst nightmare come true?
My worst nightmare come true right now, if I relate it to performance anxiety, is showing up with a lesson with Charles, which I've practiced diligently all week, and fearing that when it comes time to perform for him, I'll totally fall apart. Charles can relate to this because he's seen it happen multiple times, and I can never get beyond that step. That's the pressure I have every week.
Excellent. So the worst fear is that you sitting at the piano and it all falling apart. Correct?
At this stage, yes.
Okay. We'll stick to this stage. How do you feel when things fall apart at Charles's class?
I feel I disappointed him.
Interesting. And Louise, who disappointed Charles in his class, how do you describe that Louise? Or who is she?
She's someone I don't know. That person at that time is someone I don't know.
Very interesting. How would you label her, the disappointing Louise?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
How would you label her, the disappointing Louise?
As someone who is in serious need of some psychotherapy.
Why would Louise need psychotherapy? What's wrong with her?
What's wrong with her? She has no reason to be intimidated by a lesson because the person she's having the lesson with is there to help her.
What does that make her?
It makes her confused as to why she's having such a conflict between what she knows she can do and what she can't seem to do at a lesson.
So this Louise is confused.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Can you say that sentence out loud for me?
Which sentence? That Louise is confused?
That entire sentence.
The entire sentence is Louise is confused.
Okay. Try and be a little more specific. Like really, like be that third person who was in that room watching Louise disappoint Charles. Now describe that Louise one sentence. I know I'm pushing you, but just try that.
Describe
Try that.
Louise. Do you want me to describe it in terms of her feelings?
Just how you describe, be the judgiest you can and just describe Louise and
Okay,
that
well,
avatar.
she is, well, the primary thing is that she's confused, but she's upset because she knows she can do that.
No. Don't analyze yourself. Just describe.
Okay, sorry, I'm
judge yourself.
like around.
Do your worst. Do your worst and describe the Louise who disappoints Charles in your own word.
Do my worst. She probably should give up playing the piano altogether.
Okay.
Focus on golf.
So she's a lost cause at piano.
She feels that way at the end of the lesson, but then when she gets back into practice again,
No, you're analyzing again. Just be judgy. Do your worst, remember?
what was the question again? You're asking
With your
questions.
I know. I'm pushing you. Thanks for doing this. Give me your worst description of that Louise.
She's trying to achieve the same mastery in her piano playing that she was able to achieve when she practiced in her profession. And she's not meeting that goal, and she's a disappointment to herself.
Excellent. Very good. So I'm going to pick up on that second half of the sentence. So for you, that Louise, she's a disappointment, correct?
Right.
Okay, now listen very carefully. What did he just speak out? What were they?
I spoke about disappointment.
Yes, but what's the medium you're using? That sentence, what is it made of? What's the medium you used to describe Louise you just did?
Is the question, what is the meaning I use?
The medium.
Yeah, I'm hearing the word meeting.
Medium.
Lilium.
Oh, the medium. I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're asking.
That's fine. Just hang in there with me. What's the sentence made of?
What is a sentence made of? Words.
Yes. And where do these words live, Louise?
In my brain.
Exactly. Now, ask yourself this. Is it an absolute truth that Louise is a disappointment? Listen very carefully. Is it an absolute truth that Louise is a disappointment?
Only in regard to that one aspect of her life.
Focus on the word absolute. That needs 100% irrefutable proof. So is it an absolute truth that Louise is a disappointment?
Yeah, that's not an absolute truth.
No. So you have these words, which you have proven to yourself by default within a second, is not an absolute truth. Where do these words live? Where do these words? Right. Now picture this. Okay. Now picture a world where Louise's brains doesn't contain these words. Close your eyes if you need to.
Well, do you want me to describe that world? Those words don't exist.
Yes. So now, don't go to the world just yet, but how does Louise feel in a world where these words are not in her brain?
I think life would be a happier place without them.
Yes. So basically, you are in a happy place. But there are a bunch of words inside your brain, for some reason or the other, which needs compassion. I'm sure there's a very specific reason for these words to have made it into your brain, but you have proven to yourself that they're words, and they're certainly not an absolute truth. So is your happiness worth sacrificing over a bunch of words in your head you know not to be an absolute truth?
We come full circle.
Yes or no, though? I wanna take you to the very end. Is it worth sacrificing your happiness for a bunch of words living inside your head, inside a brain you are in control of? Especially when you know that these words are not an absolute truth.
I agree with you that it's not worth having that.
Yes. So describe one last time. Who is the Louise without these words in her brain?
She is a person who had a very successful career, has 4 kids, 15 grandkids, is a pretty good golfer, and she loves having her music lessons every week with Charles and practicing every day. It
sounds like an incredibly badass woman to me.
I'll ask my husband. He's right outside here.
Well, I will need his confirmation. So my invite to you is the next time you go into Charles's class and are worried about disappointing him, remember that your quote-unquote disappointment is a bunch of words looking for real estate in your brain and have been proven to be wrong. Because anything that's not an absolute truth doesn't get to live rent-free inside your head. It's as simple as that.
Okay, as of this moment, they're eliminated. They're gone forever.
Thank you. And how does that make you feel? One word.
Terrific.
Excellent. Job done. You're welcome.
Thank you. I probably revealed more about myself than I intended.
So you have that effect on us.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your remarks.
No, I appreciate you, Louise. You're so obviously an incredibly, at the risk of sounding repetitive, badass woman. You deserve nothing lesser than the actual Louise who you just described yourself. You are terrific. And you've proven that to yourself. You can't unsee it now. So remember that. The next time you're worried about disappointing Charles, remember you've already seen the Louise. There's no way you're going to be able to unsee that anymore.
He's going to start feeling sorry for him.
I doubt that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Are there any other last minute questions before we wrap up today? Yeah, June, go ahead.
My question is for you, Charles.
Okay.
In perspective of teaching a lesson, because I've had this happen to myself as well recently with my harp teacher. I've practiced and practiced, and then when I played for her, it was a terrible disappointment. But I'm like, and she knows I can play better than what I did at the moment, but she handles it in such a way that she makes me feel better about myself. And I for you, Charles, I was just wondering how you handle the students that think they're disappointments when they're not. I'm assuming you don't think that they're disappointments. They just have a moment that they can't handle and handle play. I was just curious how you deal with that.
So it depends a little bit. But first of all, I think it's really important, and I try to see the right times to bring this up. But one, as a teacher, there's only one thing that would disappoint me, and that's if students of mine that were really into music gave up or stopped playing. That's the only thing that would be disappointing. Yeah, everything else under the sun that can happen is not disappointing. If you have all those fears and you still show up to your lesson, you still are interested in learning and getting better and sharing, even if there's that fear around sharing what you've been working on, you're still there to share with me and get my feedback. So first thing for everybody to know, luckily I have not had a student stop playing music. So I have never been disappointed with any of my students over my lifetime of teaching. Secondly, if things like that happen in a lesson, it depends on how present the frustration gets. So sometimes the frustration and the emotion becomes so overwhelming that it's impossible to make progress. It's impossible to think clearly about what we're doing at the instrument or thinking about music. And when I see that start to be the case, we take a step back and just talk about why it is we're playing music, what makes it enjoyable in the first place, why we're working on the piece we're working on, what drew our attention to that piece of music in the first place. So there's a little bit of taking a step back and diving into, like, this is enjoyable. And reminding ourselves of what the root, the true joyful root of everything that we're embarking on. And just trying to recover some of that sense of peace and calm emotionally so that we can breathe and we can recenter, and then we can say, okay, it does not matter one bit how you just played, because we're going to just take steps forward. And as long as you're trying, you are taking steps forward. So those are the things that I try to do in lessons. They don't, for people here, let's see, there are a bunch of you here that are private students of mine. I don't bring that up every lesson. Hopefully, one, because you don't come in that frustrated. But usually, I can see something build to that point. So like an example, Joey, I don't know if it was the last workshop we had together, but you had printed out an email I sent to you. Okay, if I didn't sense that you were on the edge and like, this is going to be a horrible week and you have 7 days before you see me, and those 7 days were going to be ruinous to your emotional health and your practice and everything. If it was just, oh, he's working through a little problem, I would have sent, a short one-line email. Like, hey, you've got this. Everything's okay. We'll meet in a week. But when I sent something different, the response is very different. As Joey showed you, I wrote him a novel. So I don't do that all the time. But if it's, when I see that it's really important, I take that extra time and those extra steps.
Yes, I got the feeling you did it when it was necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and you could tell I was on the edge of something at that point. That was about a month ago, I think it was.
Yeah. And then our subsequent lesson, Joey, I don't know how you had a little bit of positive that you got out of the words I wrote, and then we had a great lesson together. Great. Thanks, June. I hope, does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, I think the point I was trying to get across was that our teachers don't see us as failures. They're there to help us grow, and I think when you realize that, then it helps. And it helps if you have a good teacher. That makes a good teacher.
TL could also talk about this, and TL, you and I have talked about this related topic. But if you have a teacher that doesn't make you feel like you can grow, or puts you down for how things go in a lesson, find another teacher. It doesn't matter how great they are. It doesn't matter how great you think their career has been or anything else. It's not a healthy place for you to be. And that unravels in so many different ways over the course, because, you spend a lot of time with whoever you're studying music with. It adds up. Hours and hours and hours. And I think, TL, both you and I have had teachers that we call toxic.
Yeah.
They have the potential to be extraordinarily destructive. Yeah.
There's something about this instrument that seems to invite, or not invite, but leave a lot of space open for that kind of presence. It's strange, I don't know, and this might sound like a tangent, but the piano is one of the toughest instruments to play motorically. It is completely counterintuitive. You're hitting things with your fingers. How crazy is that? Like, who comes up with the idea of literally learning to hit things with your fingers? I have a more visceral sense of this because in German, it's called a Schlaginstrument, like literally an instrument to hit. It belongs to a family of instruments that you're meant to hit. There's so many layers in the language inside, and I think it's no coincidence that piano happens to be an instrument that is full to the brim with teachers who really should not be teaching, and not because they're bad musicians, but there's so much stuff they need to get in order first before they take on a student. It's that kind of stuff really passes on. And I can confirm, by the way, Charles used to be my coach and last year as part of an artist mastermind. And I have rarely met anyone who over-delivers at the league he does. Like, he would constantly get in trouble with the founder because he'd go like way over there. I'm not even sure I ought to be saying this, but the point I'm trying to make, just to give you an example, like 90-minute meetings would go into 2.5 hours. Okay, that's Charles.
People here are familiar with that problem.
Okay. It's one of the most wonderful problems to have. So it's deeply touching, and that's also one of the major reasons we've kept in touch, even though that particular mastermind doesn't really exist. So and that is exactly the kind of tutelage needed for not just an instrument like this, but for a dedication like this. Because, we work with linear time and metrics, and we all need to make a living. But I can tell you this, no one actually teaches music to make money. We need money to keep it going, but nobody is in it to make money. You can interpret that in any way you want to, but, yeah.
Thanks, T.L. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, you kidding?
Get a round of applause.
Thank you. I love that.
Beth, I saw your comment, Beth. And Beth, welcome. I wanted to give you a quick shout out because this is your first time joining us. I saw you caught like 90% of this. So thank you so much for being here, Beth. We're going to look forward to getting to know you better in the community and at our next workshop, okay?
Yeah, Beth, you're doing it right. I love how relaxed you look. See, that's the kind of student I want to be working with. Yeah. All you need is a piano position like the right way and the down there, I guess.
Yeah, that would be.
There's an idea if anyone's listening.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you so much, TL. It was an absolute pleasure. It's always great to chat. Yeah.
Always. For not to make a shameless plug, but just FYI, there's a wealth of free resources on my website, all like seriously researched articles on so many of the topics we talk about. There's a podcast out, which Charles is a guest on as well. One of the best episodes we had. So come around, look around the place.
I'd highly recommend the podcast. Can you give us the name of the podcast?
Sure. It's a complicated name, but the easiest way to just go to findtl.com. That's the easiest address to remember.
Okay. And I'll also post some of this in the comments below the recording of this workshop. Okay. So I'll get a couple links from you, TL, because I love your podcast. So deep, and you have lots of guests on that chat about really interesting things, and even your solo. You call them solo casts when it's just you. The topics are great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah. That means a lot coming from you, my brother. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And I hope you folks have a wonderful Saturday. Thanks for being such an engaging audience and asking these wonderful questions. This is what I live for. So I had an amazing time, and I hope we get to do this sometime down the line again.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Theo. Awesome.
Most welcome.
Gratitude from the bottom of my heart for listening to the very end. Please consider taking a minute to subscribe to our show so you know when the next episode is out. This is a labor of love, one I hope snowballs into one that's sustainable in its attempt to support independent thought and authentic relating. And having you as a regular member of our audience is what makes that a realistic prospect. Much love, and talk soon. Just another voice out there.